Hello, and welcome to History at Bedtime. In the summer of 217 BCE, a messenger reached Rome carrying news so terrible that ordinary language seemed insufficient. A Roman army had vanished beside Lake Trasimene. The consul Gaius Flaminius was dead. Thousands of citizens and allies had been killed or captured. Hannibal, the Carthaginian commander who had crossed the Alps the previous year, was still moving through Italy. The disaster had unfolded in mist and confusion, with Roman troops compressed between hills, water, and an enemy they could not properly see. By the time the message crossed the city, rumor had already enlarged every uncertainty. Some said no one had survived. Some expected Hannibal at the gates. Families crowded near the forum, seeking names that no official could yet provide. The Senate had to decide how Rome would continue the war. But before it asked how another army might be raised, it asked another question. What had gone wrong between Rome and the gods? To modern ears, this may sound like panic replacing strategy. To the Romans, it was part of strategy. An army marched through a world filled with divine powers. Magistrates acted under auspices. Treaties were sworn before gods. Vows promised temples or games in exchange for victory. Sacred boundaries separated the city from the field of war. If a commander ignored signs, if a prayer omitted a title, if a promised offering was delivered incorrectly, the error could disturb the Pax Deorum, the peace or right relationship between the community and the divine. Flaminius had long been accused by aristocratic opponents of impatience with religious restraint. Stories told after his death said that ominous signs had appeared before his final march. His horse threw him when he attempted to mount. A standard could not be pulled from the ground. Whether every detail happened as later writers described is impossible to know. In Roman memory, however, the battle became more than an ambush. It became the kind of defeat that demanded ritual explanation. Quintus Fabius Maximus was appointed dictator. He would later become famous for avoiding Hannibal's great battles, shadowing the Carthaginian army, and refusing to gamble another Roman force in open country. On his first day in office, according to Livy, Fabius argued that Flaminius had failed more through neglect of ceremonies and auspices than through lack of courage or military skill. The claim served politics. It distinguished Fabius from the dead consul and justified a different method of command. Yet it also expressed a deeply Roman conviction. Before the state could move safely, the broken relationship had to be repaired. The custodians of the Sibylline Books were ordered to consult their guarded collection of Greek prophetic verses. They reported that an earlier vow to Mars had not been properly fulfilled. The remedy was not one act, but a sequence. Great games were to be vowed to Jupiter. Temples were promised to Venus Erycina and to Mens, divine mind or good sense. Electosternium would place images of gods upon couches and offer them a ceremonial feast. Public prayers would draw citizens into collective supplication. A sacred spring was vowed, dedicating the offspring of herds born in a future season. Rome answered military disaster by opening several channels toward the divine at once. Jupiter received games. Mars received the corrected fulfillment of an old obligation. Venus of Eryx brought into Rome a goddess connected with Sicily and, indirectly, with the world of Rome's Carthaginian enemy. Mens transformed clarity of thought into a divine power worthy of a temple. The city did not search for one exclusive god whose anger explained everything. It expanded the network of relations through which recovery might become possible. Then it raised more troops, fortified roads, gathered grain, and followed Fabius into a war of delay. The ritual and the military response were not alternatives. They belonged to the same attempt to restore order. This is the heart of Roman religion. It was not primarily a collection of colorful myths about Jupiter's thunderbolt, Venus's beauty, or Mars's spear. It was a way of organizing action in a world where human and divine communities overlapped. It shaped the calendar, war, law, farming, marriage, childbirth, commerce, elections, funerals, neighborhoods, and the emperor's authority. It could be solemn or festive, intimate or terrifying. It could preserve practices whose meanings had grown obscure and adopt foreign gods in moments of crisis. It could be manipulated by politicians without becoming unreal to the people who manipulated it. There was no single sacred book containing the whole system. There was no creed that every Roman had to recite. There was no central institution equivalent to a later church. A person could sacrifice to Jupiter at a public festival, offer wine to household Lares in the morning, consult an astrologer in the afternoon, join the mysteries of Isis, and discuss whether the gods were bodies, ideas, stars, or poetic names over dinner. What held this world together was not doctrinal agreement. It was participation, a prayer spoken correctly, a promise remembered, a boundary respected, a festival kept, a victim offered, a meal shared, a sign observed, a tomb visited, a god given the honor appropriate to that place and moment. The Romans often expressed the relationship through the phrase diutida, I give so that you may give. This can sound like a commercial bargain, as though sacrifice were a coin inserted into a divine machine. The reality was richer. Gifts created relationships. A vow placed the future under obligation. Gratitude required fulfillment after success. Neglect could become impiety. Repetition did not empty ritual of meaning. Repetition made trust visible. On the morning of a sacrifice, attendants washed, vessels were prepared, and the chosen animal was inspected. Its species, sex, and color had to suit the deity. A white ox might be led toward Jupiter, garlanded, and sometimes adorned upon the horns. A flute could sound to cover accidental words that might interrupt sacred speech. The officiant veiled his head in Roman fashion and followed a precise formula, sometimes repeating words spoken by an assistant so that nothing essential would be omitted. Salted meal prepared by the Vestals was scattered. Wine was poured. The victim was killed, and its inner organs were examined. If the signs were defective, another animal might be required. Precision mattered because the gods were addressed as particular powers, not as a vague audience. A Roman prayer could list several names and possible identities, guarding against error, whether you are god or goddess, by whatever name you wish to be called. A general besieging a city might invite its protecting deity to abandon the enemy and accept a greater temple and worship in Rome. A farmer might offer to Mars not because war was near, but because Mars could protect fields and boundaries. A woman might call upon Juno in one aspect for marriage and another for childbirth. Jupiter was not only one god with one task. He appeared under titles connected to oaths, weather, victory, boundaries, and the security of the state. Religion was therefore exact without being fixed. The system could absorb new names because divine power was assumed to exceed any single human description. Romans identified gods encountered abroad with familiar powers, a practice later called interpretatio Romana. A Celtic deity of trade and movement might be called Mercury. A local mother goddess might share features with Juno or Minerva without losing her own name. The result was not simple replacement. Inscriptions across the empire often joined identities, producing divine names that belonged to both Rome and a province. This flexibility helped a city become an empire. Yet Rome's religious world began long before it ruled distant provinces, in a landscape of hills, springs, woods, farms, and neighboring communities in central Italy. To understand the gods at the center of the empire, we must leave the marble temples behind for a while and return to a smaller place, where smoke rises from household hearths and the sacred is measured by the edge of a field. The earliest Romans did not leave a complete account of their religious beginnings. What later Romans believed about those beginnings survives through stories shaped by centuries of memory. They said that Romulus founded the city through signs. Before walls rose, Romulus and his brother Remus watched the sky for birds, seeking divine confirmation of who should rule and where the new settlement should stand. Their dispute ended in blood, but the act of observing the heavens remained part of Roman political identity. A city created through auspices had to continue consulting them. They said that Numa Pompilius, Rome's second king, gave peaceful order to the sacred life that Romulus's violent foundation had begun. Numa established priesthoods, divided the calendar, appointed the Vestals, and taught rites. Later traditions surrounded him with the nymph Egeria, who met him in a grove and advised him. Historians cannot recover one king personally designing Roman religion. The story instead reveals what Romans wanted to believe. Institutions of worship were as old as the city and had been created through wisdom rather than improvisation. The actual religious landscape of early Rome grew from Latin, Sabine, Etruscan, Greek, and other Italian traditions. The communities of central Italy traded, married, fought, migrated, and shared sanctuaries. No pure original Roman religion existed untouched by neighbors. The city's talent was not guarding a closed inheritance. It was turning inheritance and borrowing into something publicly Roman. The hills themselves carried sacred associations. The Palatine held settlements before monumental palaces. The Capitoline became the height of Jupiter. The Forum, once a low, wet space between communities, developed into the meeting place of politics and cult. Springs and groves could possess divine presence before masonry defined them. Boundaries were protected because a boundary was not merely a line. It expressed agreement between households, communities, and gods. Terminus guarded boundary stones. At the Terminalia, neighbors met where their lands touched, decorated the marker, and made offerings. The ritual made property visible while also restraining it. A stone should not be moved secretly because a god occupied the relationship it represented. Janus guarded beginnings, gates, passages, and transitions. He could be shown with two faces, looking in more than one direction. Prayers often named him first because access to the gods began through an opening. Vesta, whose presence belonged to the hearth, could receive the final portion. Between Janus and Vesta lay the movement from entrance to center, from beginning to settled fire. The hearth was both practical and sacred. Fire cooked grain, warmed rooms, illuminated darkness, and gathered a household around a common point. If fire failed, daily life failed. Vesta's circular temple in the Forum extended that domestic necessity to the whole community. The state had a hearth because Rome imagined itself as an enlarged household. This did not mean every Roman family practiced exactly the same rites. Household composition varied enormously. An aristocratic domus with enslaved attendants, clients, ancestral masks, and several generations under one roof was not the same as a cramped apartment room above a workshop. A rural farm differed from a merchant's house in Ostia or a soldier's quarters beside the Rhine. Yet divine attention could enter all of them. At a domestic shrine, often called a lararium by modern scholars and ancient sources, painted or sculpted figures represented protective powers. The Lares watched over place and household. The Penates were associated with provisions and continuity. The genius of the male household head expressed generative and protective capacity, while women could be associated with Juno in a similarly personal sense. Snakes painted beneath the Lares could suggest fertility, prosperity, and the sacred character of the ground. Pompeii preserves hundreds of household shrines because volcanic burial froze a city's walls, niches, lamps, and painted gods. Some lararias stand in atria visible to visitors. Others appear near kitchens, shops, gardens, or service spaces. This variety warns against imagining one compulsory daily ceremony performed identically everywhere. A small act might be enough. incense, wine, a cake, fruit, flowers, or a few words before travel. At a wedding, birth, birthday, departure, return, or coming of age, the household could mark change with greater care. Enslaved people participated in domestic cult even when the household hierarchy denied them freedom. They prepared offerings, shared festival meals, and honored powers that belonged to a home legally controlled by someone else. Religion did not erase inequality. It often expressed it. The paterfamilias might lead household rites because Roman law and custom placed authority in his hands. Ancestors displayed in elite houses reinforced claims to status. A family procession at a funeral could make private descent into public power. The same society that imagined the household as a sacred unity allowed the sale of human beings and gave different members radically unequal rights. Yet ritual also created spaces where normal rank could shift temporarily. At Saturnalia, household roles were playfully inverted. Enslaved people might dine first or receive service at the table, speak more freely, gamble, where the soft cap associated with liberty, and exchange gifts with free household members. The reversal did not abolish slavery. When the festival ended, authority returned. Its pleasure depended partly upon everyone knowing that the inversion was temporary. Saturnalia began on the 17th of December and expanded over time into several days of celebration. Saturn's temple in the Forum housed the state treasury, joining an old agricultural god to Rome's financial center. During ordinary days, the feet of Saturn's cult image were bound with wool. At the festival, the bonds were loosened, as though an older age of abundance and equality were briefly released. Later comparisons between Saturnalia and Christmas often claim a direct and simple descent. The calendar of late antiquity developed through more complicated overlap, competition, and reinterpretation. Gift-giving, winter feasting, lights, and social release belonged to many seasonal traditions. Christianity did not merely rename Saturnalia, and Saturnalia did not disappear in one moment. What matters for Roman life is that the festival gave December a recognizable emotional shape long before Christian celebrations came to organize the season. The agricultural year offered many such rhythms. In spring, fields, flocks, and boundaries required attention. The Perilia in April purified sheep and shepherds with smoke, fire, and offerings. Later it became linked with Rome's birthday, connecting rural protection to civic foundation. At the Robigalia, sacrifice sought protection from crop disease, personified through the power Robigus or Robigo. At the Floralia, the goddess Flora received games marked by color, performance, and license as vegetation opened. The Cerealia honored Ceres and the grain upon which city and countryside depended. Roman religion was full of divine powers whose importance was practical rather than mythological. Pales, Consus, Ops, Pomona, Silvanus, and many others belonged to particular tasks, seasons, spaces, or forms of abundance. Later writers sometimes mocked long lists of specialized deities associated with sowing, sprouting, childbirth, doors, and other stages of life. The lists may exaggerate or systematize traditions that were never so neat. Still, they capture a Roman habit of noticing that human success depends upon many vulnerable steps. A crop did not simply grow. Ground opened, seed entered, rain arrived, shoots survived disease, grain ripened, workers harvested, stores remained dry, and food reached the household. Each stage could fail. Naming powers within the process made dependence visible. The calendar coordinated these relations. Before Julius Caesar's reform in the 1st century BCE, the Roman calendar was tied imperfectly to lunar cycles and the solar agricultural year. Priests supervised intercalation, and political manipulation could affect whether an extra month extended or shortened a magistrate's term. Days carried legal and religious classifications. On some, assemblies could meet. On others, public business was restricted. Festivals, anniversaries, market days, and ritual prohibitions shaped movement through time. A Roman looking at a written calendar saw more than numbered dates. Letters and abbreviated festival names mapped what the community was allowed or required to do. Time belonged to the gods before it belonged to private convenience. The dead occupied this calendar too. During the Saturnalia in February, families visited tombs with garlands, wine, grain, salt, bread, and violets. The offerings could be modest. What mattered was remembrance. The dead, often called manes in funerary language, remained part of the moral and sacred community. Tomb inscriptions addressed passers-by, named relationships, described careers, complained of early death, and asked the living to pause. Roman burial grounds lay outside the sacred boundary of the city, lining roads where memory could be seen. Wealthy monuments competed for attention. Poorer burials used small markers, reused containers, or collective arrangements. Collegia, voluntary associations organized around occupation, neighborhood, worship, or fellowship, could provide members with funeral support and a shared meal of remembrance. To die without burial or proper rites was feared because the transition remained incomplete. The Lemuria in May addressed restless or dangerous dead within the household. According to later descriptions, the household head walked at night, made signs, washed his hands, and threw black beans behind him while reciting words that asked ancestral shades to leave. Bronze was struck, and the ceremony ended only after the formula had been repeated. Whether every family performed the rite exactly as literary antiquarians described is uncertain. The survival of such descriptions reveals another Roman quality. Even when the original explanation was obscure, correct repetition could preserve safety. The sacred was not confined to belief about distant gods. It occupied food, time, ancestry, property, and the route from the front door to the street. As Rome grew from clustered settlements into a city, these intimate relations were joined by public institutions. A household could offer at its own hearth. The state needed priests, records, temples, and officials able to decide whether an election, a battle, or a treaty had begun under acceptable signs. The gods of Rome were becoming gods of government. The great temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus stood on the Capitoline Hill as a statement in architecture. Tradition placed its dedication at the beginning of the Republic, around the end of the 6th century BCE, though the building had been planned under Rome's kings. Its three-part cella housed Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva, a triad shaped in an Etruscan and Italian religious world. The temple overlooked the Forum, received triumphing generals, held sacred pledges, and marked the summit toward which political authority climbed. On the 1st of January, when the consular year began in the later Republic and Empire, new consuls processed to the capital and sacrificed white bulls to Jupiter. Friends, senators, attendants, musicians, priests, and spectators joined the ascent. The scene united election, rank, divine approval, and public visibility. A magistrate did not simply begin a job. He entered office before the god who guarded Rome's promises and sovereignty. Jupiter's full title mattered: Optimus Maximus, best and greatest. He was not merely the Roman equivalent of Greek Zeus. Greek stories, art, and theology deeply reshaped Roman imagination, but Jupiter's civic roles had their own history. Oaths were sworn by him. Treaties called upon him. Generals promised him spoils. The state sought his approval when public time renewed. Juno shared the Capitoline temple, but possessed many identities across Roman life. Juno Regina was queenly. Juno Moneta, associated with warning and memory, gave her name indirectly to the place where coins were produced and eventually to the English word money. Juno Lucina was called upon in childbirth. The divine could be both one named goddess and a group of functions distinguished by title. Minerva protected craft, skill, thought, and professions. Artisans, teachers, doctors, scribes, and performers could recognize something of their work within her domain. At the Quinquatria, her festival became associated with guilds and learning as well as older ritual. Mars stood near the center of Roman identity. Later myth made him father of Romulus and Remus through the Vestal Rea Silvia. He protected soldiers, but his older and broader associations included fields, boundaries, youthful force, and the community's capacity for defense. March opened the traditional campaigning season. Priests called Salii moved through the city carrying sacred shields, dancing and singing hymns whose archaic words were difficult even for later Romans to understand. The sacred shields, or ancilia, expressed continuity through imitation. One shield was said to have fallen from heaven as a sign that Rome's power would endure. Numa ordered copies so that an enemy could not identify and steal the original. Whether anyone believed every detail literally was less important than the yearly sight of priests carrying the shields through streets. The Salii's dance reminds us that Roman ritual was not always grave stillness. It included motion, noise, costume, competition, music, laughter, and public display. Sacred seriousness did not exclude spectacle. Priesthood in Rome was usually not a separate lifelong profession devoted to pastoral care or theological teaching. Elite men could hold priestly office alongside political and military careers. A senator might be an augur, pontiff, or member of the college guarding the Sibylline Books, while also serving as consul and general. Religion and politics were not two institutions negotiating from outside each other. They were woven through the same people. The pontiffs supervised a wide field of sacred law and practice. They advised on calendars, vows, burials, adoptions, priestly discipline, and ritual precedent. Their chief, the Pontifex Maximus, occupied an office of extraordinary prestige. During the Republic, the title did not make him ruler of all Roman religion. Other colleges retained their own authority, and magistrates themselves carried sacred responsibilities. But the Pontifex Maximus stood at the center of memory and regulation. Julius Caesar held the office. Augustus later waited until the previous holder, Lepidus, died before assuming it, then made the position part of imperial authority. Emperors thereafter commonly carried the title, though its use and meaning changed across centuries. The augurs dealt with authorized observation of signs, especially auspices relevant to public action. They did not simply predict the future by watching random birds. An augur defined a sacred field of observation and interpreted signs according to inherited rules. Magistrates possessed the right to take auspices connected with office, while the augural college guarded expertise and precedent. Before an assembly, election, or campaign, the question was often not, "What will happen?" It was, "Do the gods permit this action now?" This distinction mattered. This was characteristic Roman adaptation. The world changed. The form was preserved by redefining space. The flamens served particular gods. The three senior flamens belonged to Jupiter, Mars, and Quirinus. The flamen Deilis, priest of Jupiter, lived within a dense web of taboos. Ancient antiquarians listed restrictions involving knots, iron, horses, armed troops, certain foods, hair cutting, travel, and nights away from Rome. His wife, the Flaminica Deilis, was essential to the priesthood. If she died, he had to resign. Some restrictions may have altered across time, and later writers may have assembled rules from different periods. Taken together, they made the priest's body into sacred territory. He represented Jupiter through a life deliberately separated from ordinary freedoms. Women's public religious roles extended beyond the wives of priests. The Vestals were the most visible sacred women in Rome. Chosen as children, they served for 30 years, traditionally divided into learning, performance, and teaching. They tended Vesta's fire, prepared sacred substances including the salted meal used in sacrifice, guarded objects and documents, attended ceremonies, and occupied privileged seats at public games. A Vestal was removed from the usual legal control of a Roman father. She could own property and make a will. Lictors preceded her. Her person was inviolable. Tradition said that a condemned person encountered by chance might receive mercy, though the practical limits of such stories are difficult to define. The privileges were matched by extreme demands. If the sacred fire went out, the responsible Vestal could be beaten by the chief pontiff in a ritualized punishment. If a Vestal was convicted of breaking her vow of chastity, she was buried alive in an underground chamber outside the city's sacred boundary. Because her body was sacred, the state avoided shedding her blood directly. Food and light were placed in the chamber, allowing Rome to claim that death was not technically imposed by starvation, even though the outcome was certain. Such convictions were rare and politically charged. They often appeared during periods of military defeat, social fear, or accusations that the state had lost divine favor. A woman's body became the place where collective anxiety was punished. In 114 and 113 BCE, 3 Vestals were accused after one case expanded into a larger scandal. Trials, acquittals, retrials, and executions became entangled with public anger over military failures and aristocratic conduct. The scandal shows how a ritual office could give women exceptional authority while exposing them to terrifying scrutiny. Other women participated in festivals and cults unavailable or less central to men. The rites of the bona dea, good goddess, were celebrated by elite women in a magistrate's household with men excluded. In 62 BCE, Publius Clodius Pulcher entered the ceremony disguised as a woman, allegedly seeking access to Julius Caesar's wife Pompeia. The scandal became political theater. Caesar divorced Pompeia while saying that his household must be free even from suspicion, though Clodius was acquitted at trial. The goddess herself almost disappears behind the male political careers that preserve the story. This imbalance belongs to our evidence. Most surviving Roman texts were written by elite men interested in war, government, and scandal. Women's regular prayers, local priesthoods, neighborhood rites, healing practices, and acts of devotion appear more fully through inscriptions and archaeology than through grand narratives. The same is true for the poor, enslaved people, immigrants, and provincials who made up most of Rome's religious population. State religion was directed by elites, but it did not belong only to them. Crowds watched processions. Families received meat from sacrifices. Neighborhoods organized festivals. Soldiers carried gods across frontiers. Traders founded shrines. Freed people paid for altars. Enslaved people served in temples, associations, and households. The city's sacred order depended upon thousands of hands whose names were rarely recorded. And when that order seemed broken, every level of Roman society could become involved in repair. Lake Trasimene was not the first crisis to produce such a response. It was one moment in a long history of prodigies, vows, imported cults, and attempts to discover what the gods required when ordinary ritual no longer seemed sufficient. A year in Rome gave these institutions motion. On the first morning of January, consuls climbed toward Jupiter. In February, families turned toward the dead. March awakened weapons, fields, and public action. April opened into festivals of growth, grain, herds, and Rome's own foundation. Summer brought games, heat, harvest, and danger from fire or disease. Autumn marked military return and preparation for winter. December loosened Saturn's bonds. The sequence was never perfectly stable. Festivals changed length and emphasis. New anniversaries entered the calendar. Emperors added birthdays, victories, and family commemorations. Yet sacred time gave Romans recurring ways to meet uncertainty. Consider one household preparing for the Saturnalia on the 1st of March. The festival honored Juno Lucina, associated with childbirth and women. A husband might give gifts to his wife. Women visited the goddess. Enslaved women could receive a meal or attention within the household. The day joined fertility, marriage, status, and affection without eliminating the inequalities between participants. Later in the month, the Anna Perenna festival drew people outside the city for drinking, songs, and wishes for as many years of life as cups consumed. Literary descriptions emphasize playful sexuality and popular celebration. The goddess's identity remained uncertain even to Roman authors, who offered several stories. Not knowing one theology did not prevent keeping a festival. At the Forticidia in April, pregnant cows were sacrificed for the fertility of the earth. The unborn calves were burned, and the Vestals preserved ashes used days later in the Perilia. Ritual linked one festival to another through material kept under sacred care. Modern discomfort before such sacrifice is appropriate. Roman public religion required killing animals on a scale visible in streets, temples, and games. Participants could hear the victim, smell blood and smoke, watch trained attendants, and later eat meat. The act dramatized human dependence through a gift that cost life. Romans did not all respond identically. Philosophers questioned sacrifice. Poor people experienced it differently from officials. Animal dealers, butchers, musicians, priests, cooks, and cleaners saw labor where poets saw solemnity. The victim's apparent willingness mattered in ideal descriptions, but animals could resist. Ritual perfection was an aspiration performed amid physical unpredictability. At the Venalia, wine connected Jupiter, Venus, vineyards, trade, and social pleasure. At the Consualia, hidden altars and horse races recalled grain storage and old foundation stories. At the Arma Lustrium in October, weapons were purified as campaigning season closed. At the Ludi Romani, games for Jupiter filled public space with theater, racing, and procession. Games were offerings. Spectators seeking entertainment participated in sacred obligation even if they cared more about a charioteer than the god. Theater began with procession and sacrifice. Circus factions inspired fierce loyalty. Emperors increased spectacles because generosity toward people and gods strengthened authority together. Religion met appetite without becoming only entertainment. Jupiter remained above the city's official order, but other gods stood closer to particular needs. Mercury protected exchange, profit, movement, and communication. Merchants sprinkled themselves and their goods with water at his festival, asking that business speech and even its deceptions receive purification. Roman commerce could not pretend bargaining was morally simple. Ceres embodied grain and the vulnerability of food supply. Her Aventine temple had political connections with the plebeian community. Officials responsible for grain and markets operated within her sacred landscape. When shortages struck, hunger could become riot, and divine favor became inseparable from transport, storage, price, and government. Neptune ruled waters that Romans needed and feared. Before Rome became a great naval power, his place differed from the Greek sea empire imagined around Poseidon. As Roman fleets and commerce expanded, the identification grew. Sailors also honored Portunus, harbor powers, local sea gods, Isis, the Dioscuri, and any protector associated with safe return. Vulcan received worship in relation to destructive and controlled fire. His ancient sanctuary stood outside or at the edge of Rome's early central space, fitting a power too dangerous to contain carelessly. In a dense imperial city, fire was never an abstraction. Lamps, braziers, workshops, kitchens, timber floors, and narrow streets could turn one accident into catastrophe. The gods did not replace practical measures. Rome organized water, watchmen, building rules, and firefighting. Worship acknowledged that preparation never removed risk. Fortuna appeared in countless forms because luck itself appeared everywhere. She could protect women, soldiers, emperors, cities, and particular places. Her wheel later became a powerful image of changing condition. A person might possess discipline and still need fortune. Victoria represented victory not as an event, but as a divine presence. Fides embodied trust and good faith. Concordia expressed agreement within a state repeatedly threatened by internal conflict. Salus guarded well-being. Spes was hope. Pax was peace. These personified powers show Roman religion turning political and emotional conditions into beings who could receive temples and sacrifice. A temple to Concordia did not prove harmony existed. It revealed how urgently harmony was needed. After civil conflict, rebuilding such a temple could claim that unity had returned. When an emperor placed Pax on a coin, the image carried a promise backed by armies. The divine world included stories, but it also included ideals, conditions, and relationships made visible. Romans encountered gods through images whose style changed with conquest. Early terracotta temple figures gave way to marble and bronze, shaped by Greek art. Colossal cult statues created awe. Small figurines created intimacy. Coins placed divine symbols into ordinary hands. Images were not necessarily the gods themselves, yet they could hold divine presence through dedication. Washing, clothing, carrying, crowning, or protecting a cult image treated it as more than decoration. During a lectisternium, divine images reclined like honored guests. At a procession, they moved through the city. When a temple burned, rescuing sacred objects mattered as urgently as saving records or treasury. The gods had addresses. Jupiter belonged especially to the capital. Vesta's hearth stood in the Forum. Apollo stood beside Augustus on the Palatine. Diana possessed ancient importance on the Aventine and at the Grove of Aricia. Hercules received worship near the cattle market. Castor and Pollux looked over the Forum from their temple, associated with cavalry and legendary aid in battle. But divine power exceeded any one building. Diana was worshipped in many forms across Italy and provinces. Hercules belonged to soldiers, traders, labor, athletic strength, and local identifications. The twins protected travelers and sailors as well as cavalry. One god could connect communities that told different stories. Temples themselves were not congregational churches in the later sense. The inner cella housed the cult image and sacred property. Much ritual occurred outside at the altar, where crowds could see. Access to inner areas varied. A person did not attend weekly instruction from a priest explaining doctrine. Religious knowledge came through family, observation, participation, specialists, stories, inscriptions, festivals, and mistakes corrected by others. Children learned sacred life by standing within it. They watched adults veil their heads, touch an altar, keep silence, laugh at Saturnalia, carry food to a tomb, fear thunder, or pause when a procession crossed the street. They learned which days interrupted work and which gods belonged to family memory. This ordinary education sustained Roman religion more effectively than any written creed could have done. It also allowed change to enter gradually. A child could grow up seeing a new imperial anniversary as though it had always existed. A foreign goddess installed during crisis could become ancient to the next generation. A local provincial god joined to Mars could become part of a family's Roman identity. Tradition was not the opposite of innovation. Tradition was innovation repeated until memory no longer separated them. The Lupercalia in February reveals how difficult it is to reduce Roman ritual to one explanation. Young men associated with the Luperci gathered near the Palatine, sacrificed goats and a dog, marked their foreheads with blood, wiped it away with wool dipped in milk, and ran through the city wearing strips of hide. Women approached or allowed themselves to be struck with thongs because the contact was associated with fertility and successful childbirth. Later Roman writers connected the rite with Romulus, shepherds, wolves, purification, fertility, and the ancient landscape of the Palatine. These explanations do not fit perfectly together. The ceremony was older than the interpretations most fully preserved. Its endurance did not require one agreed meaning. In 44 BCE, the Lupercalia became the stage for Mark Antony's offer of a diadem to Julius Caesar. A rite rooted in archaic movement through the city suddenly carried a question about monarchy. The crowd watched not only priests and runners, but a political performance whose meaning could decide whether Caesar appeared king. This moment shows ritual gathering layers without becoming empty. A festival could remember pastoral origins, protect fertility, display noble priesthoods, entertain crowds, and provide a setting where power tested public response. Each generation inherited the form and discovered new uses within it. The same was true of the triumph, Saturnalia, funerals, vows, and household shrines. Roman religion was not a fossil carried unchanged from the distant past. It was an archive performed by living bodies. Every repetition preserved something. Every repetition also changed the conditions under which the act was understood. A Roman prodigy was not simply an unusual event. It was an event accepted by the authorities as a sign concerning the public relationship with the gods. Reports arrived from towns across Italy, stones falling from a clear sky, statues sweating, animals speaking, lightning striking temples, rivers running red, infants born with bodies that challenged expected categories, phantom armies appearing in the clouds. Some reports were dismissed. Others were investigated, entered into records, and answered with prescribed rites. The process mattered because fear had to be organized. If every rumor became a divine command, panic could govern the city. If all signs were ignored, the community risked neglecting a warning. The Senate, magistrates, pontiffs, haruspices, and custodians of the Sibylline Books turned uncontrolled stories into public decisions. The Sibylline Books occupied a special place in this system. Roman tradition said that a mysterious old woman offered King Tarquinius 9 books of prophecy at an enormous price. When he refused, she burned 3 and offered the remaining 6 for the same amount. He refused again. She burned 3 more. At last, after consulting religious advisors, the king bought the final 3 at the original price. The story explained both the book's value and the danger of rejecting divine knowledge. The collection was written in Greek verse and guarded by appointed officials. It was not used for private fortune-telling or open to answer ordinary questions. In war, plague, famine, and terrifying prodigy, the Senate could order consultation. The keepers then recommended rites, often bringing Greek or foreign forms more fully into Roman public worship. Rome's religious conservatism was therefore equipped with a mechanism for authorized innovation. In 399 BCE, during disease, the Sibylline Books were said to recommend Rome's first lectisternium, a banquet at which divine images or symbols were placed upon couches and offered food. The rite had Greek associations. Once accepted under public authority, it became part of Roman religious practice. A god did not become less Roman because the remedy came from elsewhere. This principle accompanied military expansion. Rome fought neighbors whose gods inhabited the same landscape and whose rituals often resembled its own. Victory did not require denying that an enemy's gods existed. It could involve persuading them. Through evocatio, a Roman commander might invite the protective deity of a besieged city to abandon it and accept worship, temple, and honor among the Romans. The most famous tradition concerns Juno Regina at the Etruscan city of Veii. After Rome captured Veii in the early 4th century BCE, the goddess was ceremonially transferred to the Aventine. The story made conquest into migration with divine consent. War also involved vows. A general promised a temple, games, or a share of spoils if a god granted victory. After success, the vow had to be fulfilled. Temples across Rome's landscape preserved the memory of military bargains. A building could be both sacred house and stone record of a commander's career. The triumph brought these relationships into one immense procession. A victorious general entered Rome in special dress, accompanied by soldiers, captives, spoils, paintings, models, musicians, officials, and sacrificial animals. He traveled toward the Capitoline Temple, where Jupiter received sacrifice and the commander laid down the signs of victory. For a day, the general appeared close to royal or divine magnificence, yet the procession ended by returning honor to Jupiter. The triumph celebrated human achievement while containing it within divine hierarchy. Roman stories also preserved a darker form of battlefield vow called devotio. In moments of crisis, a commander could dedicate himself and the enemy army to gods of the underworld and the earth, then ride into battle expecting death. The Decii, a family of republican generals, became associated with repeated acts of self-dedication. Whether each event occurred exactly as narrated is less important than the ideal. A magistrate's body could become an offering for the survival of the community. Sacrifice in Roman religion usually involved animals, food, wine, incense, or objects. Romans often defined themselves against peoples they accused of human sacrifice. Yet their own history contained exceptional killings that ancient authors themselves described as disturbing. After the catastrophe at Cannae in 216 BCE, a Gaulish man and woman and a Greek man and woman were buried alive in the Forum Boreum. Livy called the rite scarcely Roman. It had precedent, but its rarity and secrecy reveal how extreme the crisis felt. The city that usually transformed foreign cults into public ritual now placed foreigners beneath the earth as part of emergency expiation. Cannae followed only a year after Trasimene. Hannibal's victories produced not one religious response, but a sustained period of anxiety. Oracles circulated. Private rites multiplied. Crowds, especially women according to Livy's account, gathered at temples and altars in ways officials considered disorderly. Foreign prophets and sacrificial specialists offered interpretations. The Senate attempted to regulate practices that had escaped elite supervision. This did not mean ordinary Romans suddenly abandoned traditional religion. It meant the established system was under pressure from repeated failure. When a ritual promise seemed ineffective, people sought another healer, prophet, goddess, or method. Official Rome did the same thing more slowly and with authorization. The vow to Venus Erycina after Trasimene illustrates this adaptability. Eryx in western Sicily had long held a famous goddess associated across cultures with fertility, protection, and Aphrodite or Astarte. Carthaginians, Greeks, Elymians, and Romans could understand her through different names. By promising her a temple at Rome, the state did more than import a foreign deity. It placed a power connected with enemy territory inside Rome's own sacred map. Mens, the other deity promised a temple, offered a different remedy. Good judgment became divine after a defeat blamed on reckless command. Rome sacralized the capacity it most urgently needed. The sacred spring vow during the same crisis recalled an archaic dedication of new life. Offspring of herds born in the appointed spring were consecrated. Earlier Italian traditions also remembered human children dedicated symbolically, then sent away upon reaching adulthood to found new communities, though Roman performance in this period concerned animals. The vow reached backward toward ancestral practice, while other remedies reached outward toward Greek and Sicilian cult. Rome survived Hannibal partly because it could do both. In 205 BCE, when the wars still continued, the Sibylline Books were consulted again. Their interpretation said that a foreign enemy could be driven from Italy if the Great Mother of Mount Ida was brought to Rome. The goddess was known as Magna Mater, Great Mother, or Cybele. Her main sacred stone came from Penates in Anatolia. Roman ambassadors negotiated its transfer. The choice was connected with Rome's growing claim to Trojan ancestry. The goddess came from the region of ancestral Troy and could be welcomed not as a stranger, but as a returning protector. When the sacred object arrived in 204 BCE, elite women received it. A later legend made the matron Claudia Quintus central to the event. Accused of sexual misconduct, she proved her chastity by drawing the goddess's grounded ship with her own hands after others failed. The story joined female virtue, miracle, and the arrival of foreign power. Magna Mater was installed on the Palatine, near the heart of Rome. But incorporation did not erase discomfort. Her ecstatic Phrygian priests, known as Galli, wore distinctive clothing, played loud music, and were associated with self-castration. Roman citizens were restricted from becoming such priests for much of the Republic. The state welcomed the goddess while controlling practices considered incompatible with Roman masculine status. Accommodation had boundaries. The same was true of Bakshik worship. In 186 BCE, the Senate issued a decree restricting bacchanalian associations across Italy. Livy's later narrative described secret nocturnal meetings, sexual disorder, forged wills, murder, and conspiracy. His account reflects elite fear as much as neutral reporting. The surviving bronze inscription of the senatorial decree confirms that officials imposed severe controls. Meetings required authorization, leadership was restricted, and group size was limited. The cult of Bacchus was not simply abolished. It was brought under supervision. What alarmed the Senate was not foreignness alone. Greek cults had been entering Rome for centuries. The danger lay in private organization outside traditional chains of authority. Oaths, leaders, funds, gatherings, and loyalties the state did not control. Religion could unite people. That made it politically powerful. As Rome expanded into the Greek Mediterranean, elite Romans encountered temples, sculptures, myths, philosophical schools, and ritual traditions of immense prestige. Jupiter became increasingly visualized through Zeus. Venus absorbed Aphrodite's stories. Mars interacted with Ares while retaining a more honored Roman civic place. Apollo, long present in Italy, gained new prominence. Hercules appeared at markets, crossroads, military sites, and private banquets. Roman poets later narrated the gods through Greek myth so successfully that modern readers often imagine Roman religion as Greek religion with translated names. The live system was less tidy. A farmer praying at a boundary stone, a consul taking auspices, an initiate entering an underground sanctuary, and a poet telling how Venus protected Aeneas did not participate in one uniform theology. They inhabited overlapping religious worlds. By the 2nd century BCE, conquest was pouring wealth, enslaved people, art, and foreign expertise into Rome. Temples became more magnificent. Generals competed through sacred building. Philosophers asked whether traditional stories should be understood literally, allegorically, or dismissed. The gods were becoming more visible in marble at the same time that educated Romans were becoming more willing to debate what a god actually was. That debate did not dissolve ritual. It prepared Roman religion for another transformation. As republican competition grew violent and individual families began tying divine ancestry to claims of political power. The late Republic did not become less religious as political violence increased. It became religious in more competitive ways. Noble families claimed special ties to gods. Generals returned from campaigns with vows, spoils, and sacred titles. Public office depended upon ritual authority. Omens were debated in the Senate while armies gathered outside Italy. The same institutions that restrained ambition could also be used to obstruct rivals. In 63 BCE, Julius Caesar was elected Pontifex Maximus. He was still a rising politician burdened by debt. The election gave him prestige, residence, and a position at the center of sacred law. Ancient accounts say he spent heavily and faced ruin if defeated. The office did not remove him from politics. It strengthened his place within it. Caesar later claimed descent from Venus through the Trojan hero Aeneas and Aeneas's son Iulus. At the funeral of his aunt Julia, he publicly connected the family to both kings and gods. During civil war, this ancestry became visible through coins, standards, temples, and the Forum of Caesar, centered on Venus Genetrix, Venus the ancestress. The goddess of attraction and fertility became a dynastic mother. Caesar's enemies also possessed divine language. Pompey associated himself with Venus Victrix, Venus the Victorious, and built her temple above his theater. Competing commanders could appeal to different forms of the same goddess. Rome's pantheon was broad enough to contain both claims until battle decided which one would dominate memory. Religious procedure filled the final decades of the Republic. In 59 BCE, Caesar's colleague Bibulus attempted to obstruct public business by announcing that he was watching the sky for omens. Political jokes said the year belonged to Julius and Caesar, as though one man held both consulships. Behind the humor lay a serious constitutional question. Could sacred observation invalidate legislation when everyone knew the observation was partisan? In 44 BCE, honors offered to Caesar approached the boundary between exceptional magistrate and sacred ruler. His statue stood among kings. A special priesthood was created for him. The month Quintilis was renamed July. Rumors of kingship spread. During the Lupercalia, Mark Antony offered him a diadem before the crowd, and Caesar refused it. The performance did not save him. After his assassination on the Ides of March, Caesar's body was burned in the Forum amid popular anger. A comet appeared during games held in his honor several months later. Octavian, his adopted heir, promoted the interpretation that the star revealed Caesar's soul among the gods. The Senate eventually recognized the dead dictator as Divus Julius, the divine Julius. Octavian could now call himself Divi Filius, son of a god. This title transformed political inheritance into sacred relationship without requiring Octavian to claim personal divinity. It appeared on coins carried by soldiers and traders across the Roman world. Civil war continued through proscriptions, Philippi, Perugia, Sicily, Actium, and Alexandria. Each faction used gods, omens, vows, and ancestral stories. Mark Antony presented himself in association with Dionysus in the East. Cleopatra appeared through the imagery of Isis. Octavian described the final conflict not simply as a Roman civil war, but as a defense of Roman gods and values against an Eastern queen and an Antony corrupted by foreign power. The contrast was propaganda, not a clear map of religious reality. Isis already had worshippers in Italy. Dionysian cult had long existed in Roman life. Octavian himself drew upon Greek Apollo, building a temple beside his house on the Palatine and associating the god with victory at Actium. The victor did not reject foreign or Greek religion. He claimed authority to decide which forms represented order. When Octavian became Augustus, he presented political settlement as religious restoration. Civil war had allowed temples to decay, priesthoods to remain vacant, rituals to be neglected, and sacred records to become disordered. Augustus claimed to have repaired 82 temples in Rome. The number belonged to his public record and should not be read as a complete architectural inventory, but the scale of restoration was real. Stone made the message visible. Rome had recovered its relationship with the gods because Augustus had recovered Rome. He revived old priesthoods, encouraged elite participation, reorganized festivals, and placed members of his family within sacred processions. He became Pontifex Maximus in 12 BCE after Lepidus's death. Crowds reportedly came from across Italy to support the occasion. Augustus also revised the calendar. Julius Caesar's solar reform had created the Julian calendar, but errors in applying leap years required correction. Festivals and imperial anniversaries accumulated. Time itself began to carry the ruling household. The month Sextilis became August. The era Paces, altar of Augustan peace, joined religion, family, fertility, and power. Its reliefs showed priests, magistrates, children, women, and members of the imperial house moving in ordered procession. The monument did not preach doctrine. It displayed a community whose hierarchy appeared harmonious beneath divine favor. The Forum of Augustus centered on Mars' altar, Mars the Avenger. Augustus had vowed the temple before Philippi, where Caesar's assassins were a town in Spain, Asia Minor, Africa, or Gaul could continue honoring local deities while sacrificing for the emperor's safety or celebrating his accession. Rome did not demand that Jupiter replace every god. It asked communities to place imperial power within their sacred worlds. This worked because polytheism did not normally require exclusive choice. Honoring one god did not deny another. A person could add a cult without renouncing ancestors. Divine attention was abundant, specialized, and layered. But the imperial system also revealed the coercive edge of participation. Sacrifice could serve as a public test of loyalty. Refusing a small offering might appear incomprehensible or dangerous to officials who did not ask what someone believed privately. If the gods protected the empire and the emperor maintained their worship, refusal could look like rejection of the community itself. This tension would become important with Jews and Christians. Before reaching it, however, we must enter the empire at street level, where religion was not an abstract choice between state cult and private faith. It was the smell of incense in a shop, a lamp before a painted lar, a curse folded in lead, a festival procession blocking traffic, a soldier carving an altar at the frontier, and a traveler asking a goddess for safe passage across the sea. In the port city of Ostia, religion met people arriving from everywhere. Ships entered from Africa, Egypt, Spain, Gaul, the eastern Mediterranean, and islands between them. Grain was unloaded into warehouses. Sailors carried languages and stories. Merchants formed associations around occupations and origins. Soldiers freed people, enslaved workers, officials, innkeepers, craftsmen, and families lived within streets where temples and shrines stood beside bakeries, baths, workshops, and apartment blocks. A person could pass several sacred worlds before midday. At a neighborhood shrine, garlands might hang before the Lares. At a guild hall, members honored a patron god and the emperor. At the harbor, a sailor thanked Neptune or another protective power for safe arrival. An Egyptian procession carried an image of Isis. A merchant dedicated an altar to Mercury. A soldier from the Danube worshipped a deity whose local name shared an inscription with a Roman one. This was not religious confusion. It was normal urban life. Religion accompanied association. Bakers, shipowners, builders, veterans, young people, immigrant communities, and funeral clubs could organize around meals, dues, officers, patrons, anniversaries, and divine protectors. An association might meet in a hall containing statues of gods and emperors, then collect money to ensure a member's burial. Shared meals mattered because sacrifice produced food. In a public animal sacrifice, only selected parts were burned for the gods. Priests and participants divided other portions according to custom. Meat could be distributed, sold, or consumed at a banquet. For many urban inhabitants, festivals offered access to food as well as sacred participation. The animal did not simply vanish into flame. Sacrifice connected altar, butcher, market, kitchen, rank, and community. Not every offering required blood. Incense, wine, cakes, fruit, flowers, lamps, and coins were common. A poor person could approach a small shrine without purchasing an ox. A traveler could place a modest gift beside a spring. A family could mark a birthday with wine for the household genius. The scale of offering reflected circumstance, not necessarily depth of devotion. Prayer could be formal or urgent. Votive inscriptions often preserve the letters VSLM, abbreviating a phrase meaning that someone willingly and deservedly fulfilled a vow. The inscription rarely tells the whole story. Behind it might stand illness, childbirth, business danger, military service, storm, or fear for a child. A vow began in uncertainty. If the god granted the request, the promised object, altar, statue, or offering completed the relationship. Archaeologists find these acts in stone, bronze, terracotta, and tiny anatomical models representing eyes, limbs, breasts, wombs, or other parts needing healing. Healing was religious, medical, and magical at once. Romans consulted physicians, visited sanctuaries, used herbs, wore amulets, recited formulas, and thanked gods. These approaches did not occupy mutually exclusive categories. A doctor might invoke divine aid. A temple could provide ritual and practical care. A mother might combine a prescribed medicine with prayer. The same overlap appears in divination. Alongside public augury and official consultation existed astrology, dream interpretation, lots, oracles, fortune tellers, and private signs. Astrologers calculated lives through planets and birth times. Their services were fashionable enough to attract emperors and threatening enough to be periodically expelled from Rome. An emperor wanted knowledge of the future but feared anyone else learning when he might die or who might replace him. Magic is another modern label that Romans use selectively. A person might call his own right prayer and an enemy's right magic. Cursed tablets scratched on lead asked gods, spirits, or the dead to bind opponents in lawsuits, love, business, sport, or theft. Tablets were folded, pierced, and placed in graves, wells, sanctuaries, or water. The language could be violent: bind the tongue, weaken the hands, destroy sleep, prevent victory. Such acts reveal fear and competition beneath public order. At Bath in Britain, visitors to the sacred spring of Sulis Minerva deposited curses against thieves who had taken cloaks, coins, or other possessions. The goddess joined the local Sulis with Roman Minerva. Petitioners listed suspects or surrendered the stolen object to divine ownership so that the thief had offended a god. Empire created these hybrid forms. Roman soldiers did not carry one finished religion outward and leave it unchanged. They encountered local landscapes, married or formed families, adopted regional gods, and built altars combining identities. Dedications from frontiers preserve names otherwise unknown. At Hadrian's Wall, a Syrian archer, a Batavian auxiliary, and an Italian officer could worship differently while serving the same emperor. Military units kept standards with sacred importance. The imperial image stood within camp ritual. Oaths bound soldiers to the ruler. Annual ceremonies marked accession days and victories. Yet soldiers also sought intimate protection. They honored Epona, a goddess associated with horses, especially valuable to cavalry. They worshipped local river gods, healing deities, Hercules, Mars under provincial titles, Jupiter Dolichinas from Syria, and Mithras in small groups. A frontier fort could contain more religious diversity than a literary list of the Roman pantheon suggests. The countryside was equally varied. Farmers maintained shrines at crossroads, springs, trees, groves, and field edges. Estates held festivals tied to work. Landowners' texts present orderly rituals led by the master, but actual farms depended on tenants, enslaved laborers, herders, seasonal workers, and local tradition. The gods of the estate belonged to labor as much as ownership. Cato the Elder's agricultural manual includes formulas for purifying a farm and making offerings before cutting a grove. The words are practical and precise. The grove is not described through a myth. Its sacred character appears through the need to ask permission before disturbing it. This is a central Roman religious habit. Action reveals theology. A tree may be cut, but not as though no power is present. A boundary may be crossed, but not without recognition. A war may be fought, but only after claims of justice and divine approval. A child enters adulthood through ceremony. A bride crosses a threshold under ritual protection. A dead body leaves the city through prescribed care. Religion did not make every Roman kind, honest, or obedient. It made actions accountable to more than visible witnesses. The gap between ideal and conduct remained large. Temple theft occurred. Priests behaved badly. Politicians fabricated signs. Families neglected tombs. Emperors demanded honors they had not earned. People laughed at myths and feared curses in the same week. Roman literature preserved skepticism because questioning belonged to the culture too. Cicero wrote dialogues about the nature of the gods and divination, presenting Stoic, Epicurean, and academic arguments without giving a simple final answer. One speaker defended providence. Another attacked superstition and implausible mythology. Cicero himself served as an augur and participated in public religion. Lucretius, following Epicurean philosophy, argued that gods existed in perfect tranquility and did not govern the world through anger, sacrifice, or signs. Fear of divine punishment imprisoned human minds. His poem offered natural explanations for thunder, disease, and celestial motion. Such ideas did not require immediate withdrawal from civic ritual. Educated Romans could interpret traditional forms philosophically, politically, poetically, or habitually. Stoics identified divine reason with the ordered cosmos. Jupiter could become a name for providential rational fire. Platonists imagined hierarchies of being between the highest divine principle and material life. Epicureans removed gods from intervention. Cynics mocked convention. Skeptics withheld certainty. The Roman religious world could contain all these arguments because ritual participation did not demand one theory of divinity. For many people, however, philosophy did not answer the most personal questions. What happens after death? Can a god know me individually? Can initiation change my fate? Is there a community chosen not by birth or citizenship, but by sacred experience? Mystery cults and devotional communities offered answers through secrecy, initiation, story, and belonging. They did not necessarily replace public religion. They added another depth to it. The cult of Isis offered one of the Roman world's most vivid religious experiences. Isis came from Egypt, where her stories had developed across many centuries. In the Greek and Roman Mediterranean, she became a powerful and adaptable goddess associated with motherhood, protection, healing, the sea, kingship, magic, and the fate of the dead. Her temples maintained Egyptian imagery while speaking to worshippers far beyond Egypt. A procession of Isis could fill a street with white linen, shaved-headed priests, music, lamps, sacred vessels, and the metallic rattle of the sistrum. At the opening of the sailing season, ceremonies sought protection for ships and those who depended on them. For merchants, sailors, women, freed people, and elites, Isis could be both universal queen and personally attentive savior. Apuleius, writing in the 2nd century CE, gives the fullest literary image of initiation in his novel about a man transformed into a donkey and restored by Isis. The account is fictional and artfully constructed, not a transparent ritual manual. Still, it conveys the emotional force of devotion, exhaustion, revelation, gratitude, secrecy, special clothing, and entry into a community. Isis's popularity did not mean uninterrupted acceptance. Her cult faced restrictions and temple demolitions in Republican and early imperial Rome, especially when authorities associated foreign priesthoods with independent organization or political influence. Yet suppression failed to erase her. By the imperial period, temples and worshippers appeared across the Mediterranean and far into the provinces. Roman religion repeatedly converted suspicion into accommodation. Magna Mater followed a similar path, but retained different tensions. Her public games and Palatine Temple became part of state religion. Her ecstatic music, myths of Attis, and non-Roman priests remained marked as foreign even after centuries in Rome. Citizens could honor the goddess while maintaining distance from practices judged excessive. Mithras entered imperial religious life later and more quietly. The Roman cult of Mithras was inspired by an Iranian divine name, but cannot simply be treated as imported Persian religion. Its form within the empire appears to have developed in the Roman world. No complete sacred narrative survives. Most evidence comes from archaeology. Initiates met in small, enclosed spaces designed like caves. Benches ran along both sides. At the far end stood the central image, Mithras killing a bull, surrounded by a dog, snake, scorpion, torchbearers, stars, planets, and other symbols whose full relationships remain debated. The secrecy that created community for initiates creates uncertainty for historians. 7 grades of initiation are attested, though not every sanctuary may have practiced them identically. Ritual meals mattered. The cult was male and especially visible among soldiers, customs officials, imperial servants, merchants, and other mobile groups. Mithria have been found from Syria to Britain and along the Rhine and Danube. Mithras did not become the universal rival to Christianity imagined by some later writers. The cult's small groups, male membership, and limited public role made it structurally different. It nevertheless reveals what the empire made possible. The same roads and military networks that moved orders also moved secret sacred forms. Eleusis offered another kind of initiation. The mysteries of Demeter and Persephone were rooted in a sanctuary near Athens and retained immense prestige under Roman rule. Initiates included men and women, citizens and foreigners, and eventually emperors. They underwent preparation, procession, fasting, sacred revelation, and a ceremony whose central contents were protected by silence. Ancient authors suggested that initiation changed how one faced death. The promise was not necessarily a detailed map of the afterlife. It could be confidence that death no longer meant the same thing after seeing what the sanctuary revealed. Religion in the empire was therefore not moving along one line from public ritual toward private faith. Public and private, civic and initiatory, local and universal crossed constantly. Judaism stood within this world while preserving a sharper commitment to one God. Jewish communities lived in Rome and many cities of the empire. They maintained synagogues, scripture, dietary practices, circumcision, Sabbath observance, festivals, charity, burial associations, and ties to Jerusalem before the destruction of the temple in 70 CE. Roman authorities alternated between accommodation, privilege, expulsion, taxation, suspicion, and violence depending on period and place. Jews could pray for the emperor without sacrificing to him. In some contexts, Roman government accepted this distinction because Jewish ancestral tradition was ancient and organized. Yet monotheistic refusal remained difficult within a system built upon addition. Roman polytheism asked, why not honor this god too? Jewish answer was that worship belonged to one god alone. Conflicts in Judea involved religion, taxation, land, imperial rule, local elites, apocalyptic expectation, and resistance. The destruction of the Jerusalem temple by Titus in 70 CE transformed Jewish life. Sacrifice at the central sanctuary ended. Rabbinic traditions, prayer, study, law, and synagogue community developed with new importance across subsequent centuries. Rome celebrated the victory through sacred imagery of its own. The Arch of Titus displayed the menorah and temple vessels carried in triumph. A Jewish sacred loss became a Roman monument of divine favor. The empire could recognize religious antiquity and still destroy its center during rebellion. Christianity emerged from this Jewish world. The earliest followers of Jesus were Jews. They read Jewish scripture, debated law, expected God's kingdom, and interpreted the death and resurrection of Jesus through Israel's traditions. As communities included increasing numbers of non-Jews, questions arose about circumcision, food, Sabbath, and the boundaries of belonging. Roman officials did not immediately understand Christianity as a separate religion. Local disputes could appear to be conflicts within Jewish communities. Over time, however, Christians became more visible as groups who met, baptized, shared meals, cared for poor members, remembered martyrs, read letters and sacred narratives, and refused sacrifice to other gods. Their refusal created a new kind of problem. Rome did not usually persecute people for believing a god existed. It tolerated an enormous range of divine names and local traditions. Christians were vulnerable because many rejected the ritual reciprocity through which civic peace was expressed. They would not offer incense to the gods. They would not sacrifice for the emperor in the expected way. They called other gods false, demonic, or powerless. To Christian writers, this was fidelity. To neighbors, it could look like dangerous withdrawal from shared obligation. Christians were accused of atheism not because they believed in no divinity, but because they denied the gods everyone else could see in temples, festivals, statues, and ancestral rites. Misunderstanding grew in secrecy. Outsiders heard that Christians called one another brother and sister, ate the body and blood of Christ, gathered before dawn, and practiced a meal of love. Rumor turned symbolic language into incest and cannibalism. Christian authors defended their communities as morally disciplined, charitable, and loyal in prayer, even when they refused sacrifice. They argued that one God, not ritual offerings to many gods, sustained the empire. The disagreement reached deeper than private belief. Who protected Rome? For centuries, the answer had involved Jupiter, Vesta, Mars, ancestral rites, local gods, emperor cult, and countless relationships maintained through visible action. Christians answered that the empire survived only under the providence of the god they worshipped. At first, Rome had no consistent empire-wide policy for this claim. Persecution began locally, irregularly, and often through specific accusations rather than a permanent law aimed at all Christians everywhere. In 64 CE, fire devastated much of Rome. The Emperor Nero became the target of rumor. Some accused him of allowing or even encouraging the destruction, though the evidence is tangled by hostility in later sources. Tacitus wrote that Nero blamed a group called Christians and subjected them to spectacular punishment. Some were covered with animal skins and killed by dogs. Some were crucified. Some were burned as lights at night. Tacitus disliked Christians and called their movement a destructive superstition, yet his account also suggested that sympathy arose because the victims seemed punished for Nero's cruelty rather than public welfare. This was not a general empire-wide persecution. It was a Roman response attached to fire, rumor, and imperial politics. Later Christian memory made it part of a larger age of martyrs, associating Nero with the deaths of Peter and Paul. Across the following century, treatment varied. A governor encountering Christians might not know whether the name itself was criminal or only acts associated with it. Pliny the Younger, governing Bithynia Pontus around 112 CE, wrote to Emperor Trajan for guidance. He had questioned accused Christians and ordered execution of those who persisted, while allowing those who denied the faith to prove themselves by invoking the gods, offering wine and incense before the emperor's image, and cursing Christ. Pliny investigated Christian meetings and reported that they gathered before dawn, sang to Christ as to a god, bound themselves by oath against crime, separated, and later shared ordinary food. He found what he called excessive superstition rather than the rumored atrocities. Trajan's reply established no universal law code. Christians were not to be hunted actively. Anonymous accusations should not be accepted, but if formally charged and proven, those who refused to recant could be punished. The policy was restrained and coercive at the same time. The state did not need to search every house. Local hostility could bring a person before authority. Once there, a small ritual act offered escape. Throw incense. Pour wine. Speak the formula. The act that seemed trivial to a Roman official could be spiritual betrayal to a Christian. Martyr stories grew from this collision. At Smyrna in the 2nd century, the aged Bishop Polycarp was urged to swear by the fortune of Caesar and reject Christ. The surviving account of his death was written by Christians and shaped to present sacred witness, but it preserves the public logic of the trial. Officials sought compliance more than theology. Polycarp's refusal turned execution into testimony. At Carthage in 203 CE, Perpetua, a young mother from a prosperous family, and Felicity, an enslaved woman who had recently given birth, died with other Christians in the arena. A prison narrative associated with Perpetua presents visions, family conflict, fear, courage, and preparation for death. Her father begged her to consider her infant and family. She used a simple image. Just as a vessel cannot truthfully be called something other than what it is, she could not call herself anything other than Christian. The story brought women, motherhood, slavery, and religious identity into direct conflict with household authority and civic demand. Martyrdom changed the meaning of punishment. Roman government displayed condemned bodies to demonstrate the cost of defiance. Christian communities remembered those bodies as victories. Execution could strengthen the movement it intended to discourage because witnesses interpreted endurance as evidence that divine life exceeded imperial power. Not every Christian chose death. Some fled, some hid, some sacrificed, some purchased certificates, some surrendered sacred books. Communities later fought bitterly over whether those who had failed under pressure could return and under what conditions. Persecution did not divide simple heroes from unbelievers. It exposed different limits of courage, responsibility, and fear. For most of the 2nd century, the empire remained religiously plural and Christian vulnerability remained local. Emperors continued maintaining traditional cult, consulting signs, funding temples, and receiving sacred honors. Philosophers reinterpreted gods. New cults spread. Christianity grew unevenly through households, cities, trade routes, and personal networks. In the 3rd century, political and military crisis changed the scale of the question. Emperors rose and fell rapidly. Armies proclaimed rulers. Frontiers broke. Plague moved through communities. Currency lost stability. Cities faced insecurity. When the visible order failed, rulers again asked whether divine order had failed with it. The old Roman instinct returned. Repair required collective ritual. In 249 CE, Decius became emperor. Soon afterward, an edict required inhabitants across the empire to sacrifice to the gods and for imperial welfare. The precise wording and motivation are not fully preserved. and Jews may have received exemption in some places. What survives most clearly are papyrus certificates from Egypt recording that named individuals had sacrificed, poured libations, and tasted sacrificial meat before officials. This was new in scale. Earlier persecutions had usually emerged from local charges. Decius turned sacrifice into a broad administrative act. Commissions watched. Certificates documented compliance. The empire attempted to make participation visible across provinces. The edict may not have named Christians as its only target. Its effect upon them was devastating because sacrifice was exactly what many could not perform. Some bishops and believers were imprisoned or killed. Many complied. Others evaded. Decius died in battle before the policy could become permanent. But the crisis continued within Christian communities long afterward. Who had remained faithful? Could the lapsed be restored? Was a certificate purchased without actual sacrifice equal to apostasy? These debates reveal how Roman ritual pressure reshaped Christian institutions. Bishops, confessors, councils, letters, and penitential discipline responded to a problem created by imperial demand. Under Valerian in the 250s, new measures targeted clergy and elite Christians. Then Emperor Gallienus ended the persecution and allowed a period of relative peace. Christian communities acquired property, built more visible meeting places, and entered broader social life. Traditional religion did not disappear during this growth. Temples remained active. Festivals filled cities. Military and imperial cults continued. Priests held status. A family might include Christians and non-Christians. Artisans produced objects for several sacred markets. Neighbors attended different rites and shared the same baths, streets, and food supply. The 3rd century empire was not divided into two sealed camps. Religious identity was becoming more explicit, but daily life remained entangled. Then, at the beginning of the 4th century, the state attempted one final great restoration through the gods who had protected Rome for centuries. Diocletian came to power in 284 CE after another cycle of military crisis. He reorganized imperial government, shared rule among several emperors, strengthened taxation, expanded administration, and presented the rulers through a carefully controlled sacred image. The emperors were not merely successful generals. They stood beneath the protection of Jupiter and Hercules. Ceremony placed distance between ruler and subject. Purple clothing, guarded access, formal acclamation, and divine association made imperial order visible. The tetrarchy sought stability through repetition and hierarchy. Inscriptions praised the emperors as restorers of the world. Coins carried gods, victories, and sacrificial scenes. The old Roman equation returned with renewed force: proper worship, united empire, secure frontiers. Christians now occupied positions in cities, households, bureaucracy, and even the imperial court. Some served in the army. Their refusal of sacrifice appeared not as the eccentric practice of a tiny sect, but as a gap within the restoration. In 303 CE, an edict ordered Christian churches destroyed, scriptures surrendered and burned, and certain legal rights removed. Further measures followed. Clergy were imprisoned. Later orders demanded sacrifice more broadly. The intensity varied by region and ruler, but this was the most sustained empire-wide attempt to break Christian institutions. The first edict was published at Nicomedia on the festival of Terminalia, the day honoring boundaries. Christian writers later noticed the symbolism. The government hoped to set a boundary to Christian expansion. Officials searched for books. Communities hid them or surrendered them. Churches were dismantled. Christians lost office or status. Some were tortured. Some died. Others complied. The persecution was not equally severe everywhere. In parts of the West, enforcement was limited. In the East, it lasted longer. Political rivalry among the tetrarchs changed policy. Galerius, once associated with strong enforcement, issued an Edict of Toleration in 311 as illness and failing policy overtook him. Christians were allowed to gather and were asked to pray for the emperor and state. The request was striking. A government that had demanded sacrifice now accepted Christian prayer as a contribution to public welfare. 2 years later, Constantine and Licinius agreed on broader toleration and restoration of confiscated property. The settlement, commonly called the Edict of Milan, did not immediately make Christianity the official religion. It established a framework in which Christians and others could worship openly. Constantine's rise became inseparable from Christian memory. This was not necessarily private indecision. An emperor ruled populations whose sacred habits could not be transformed by one command. Constantine's support changed Christianity itself. A persecuted network of communities became connected to imperial wealth, law, architecture, and arbitration. Bishops gained new public importance. Churches appeared as monumental spaces. Disputes over doctrine became matters of imperial unity because the emperor expected the favored religion to support peace rather than produce division. The controversy associated with Arius forced this problem into view. Christians disagreed over how the Son related to the Father and what language properly expressed divine unity. Constantine summoned bishops to Nicaea in 325 CE. The council produced a creed and condemned Arius, though debate continued for generations. A Roman emperor who once would have restored the Pax Deorum through sacrifice now sought sacred unity through Christian doctrine. The underlying political concern was familiar. Division in worship could threaten division in the state. Yet the method had changed. Correct ritual performance before many gods was giving way, at the imperial center, to correct teaching about one god. Constantine founded Constantinople on the site of Byzantium and dedicated the city in 330 CE. The new capital contained Christian churches, imperial monuments, and elements of classical religious culture. Statues moved from older cities. The urban landscape did not present a simple emptying of paganism and filling with Christianity. It assembled old and new forms beneath a Christian-favored emperor. Constantine was baptized near death in 337 CE, a common delay in an age when some feared sins committed after baptism would be especially dangerous. His sons inherited an empire in which Christianity possessed state support, but no complete monopoly. Traditional cult remained active. Senators continued priesthoods. Temples received visitors. Festivals continued. Philosophical schools taught forms of Platonism and ritual theology. Rural communities maintained local rites. Some Christians attended spectacles or family ceremonies shaped by older practice despite sermons against them. Change proceeded through law, patronage, persuasion, conflict, inheritance, and habit. The Emperor Constantius II restricted sacrifice and closed some temples, but enforcement varied. Pagan officials still served. Sacred buildings could be protected as works of beauty or sources of civic income, even when ritual was challenged. Then an emperor tried to reverse the direction. Julian, nephew of Constantine, had been raised within Christianity but embraced traditional Hellenic religion and philosophy. When he became sole emperor in 361 CE, he restored sacrifice, reopened temples, and attempted to organize pagan priesthood more systematically. Julian admired Christian charity and institutional discipline even as he opposed Christian claims. He urged pagan priests to live morally, assist the poor, and make temples worthy of respect. He sought to turn the immense diversity of traditional cults into something more coordinated. This effort revealed how much the religious landscape had changed. Roman polytheism had flourished partly because it lacked one central doctrine and universal institution. Julian tried to give it features developed by the Church without destroying its plurality. His reign was brief. He died during a Persian campaign in 363 CE. His successors did not continue the restoration. Traditional worship remained alive, but the imperial center returned to Christianity. The struggle was no longer over whether Christians could exist. It was over whether the empire would continue financing and authorizing the sacrificial system that had once defined public religion. In the Senate house at Rome stood an altar and statue of Victory. Augustus had placed them there after Actium. Senators offered incense and wine before meetings. The winged goddess represented more than military success. She watched over the body whose decisions had guided Rome through centuries. In the later 4th century, the altar became the center of a famous dispute. Emperor Gratian removed it and withdrew privileges from traditional cults. Pagan senators petitioned for restoration. Their spokesman, Quintus Aurelius Symmachus, argued that Rome's ancestral rites had brought prosperity and deserved respect. No one path, he suggested, could reach so great a mystery. The city should not be deprived of ceremonies through which it had long sought the gods. Ambrose, Bishop of Milan, answered that Christian emperors could not finance worship they considered false. Age did not make error sacred. Rome's victories, he argued, had come from courage rather than pagan sacrifice. The debate was elegant because both sides spoke about memory and public welfare. Symmachus did not ask merely for private freedom. He defended state support for an inherited religious order. Ambrose did not demand only personal Christian devotion. He insisted that imperial resources and ceremony must reflect Christian truth. The argument marked a change in what religious tolerance meant. Traditional Roman pluralism could add gods because honoring one did not deny others. Christian monotheism could permit people to live beside difference, but it could not treat sacrifice to other gods as one valid path among many without compromising its own claims. The imperial government increasingly took the Christian side. Theodosius I supported Nicene Christianity and legislated against sacrifice and certain traditional rites. Laws in the 380s and early 390s restricted temple worship, private divination, household offerings, incense, garlands, and sacrifice. The exact reach of each law and the consistency of enforcement varied. Imperial legislation often announced an ideal more completely than local officials could realize it. In Alexandria around 391 CE, conflicts surrounding the Serapeum ended with the sanctuary's destruction under Christian authority. Later narratives turned the event into a symbol of paganism's fall. The reality involved imperial law, urban faction, resistance, and competing sacred claims. The image endured because the Serapeum had represented immense cultural and religious prestige. Its fall seemed to show that gods who once protected cities could no longer protect their own houses. Yet sacred space rarely becomes empty. Churches rose near or within landscapes shaped by older worship. Christian martyrs' shrines attracted processions, lamps, vows, healing requests, and gifts. Saints became powerful patrons of cities, professions, illnesses, and journeys. Christians insisted that saints were not gods and that worship belonged to God alone, but lived practices could preserve familiar patterns of approach and intercession. A person once seeking healing at a sanctuary of Asclepius might now visit a martyr's tomb. A city once protected by a goddess might identify strongly with a saint. Relics moved in processions. Feast days ordered time. Pilgrims traveled. Votive gifts continued. The theology changed, and the continuity should not be exaggerated. Animal sacrifice, central to civic polytheism, largely disappeared from Christian public worship. The Eucharist interpreted sacrifice through Christ and a ritual meal of bread and wine rather than the killing of animals. Exclusive monotheism changed how divine plurality could be understood. Scripture, creed, bishop, and church council created forms of authority unlike the old priestly colleges. At the same time, Roman habits shaped how Christianity became imperial. Bishops advised emperors. Councils resembled political assemblies in organization. Law defined orthodoxy and heresy. Christian festivals affected courts and public business. Imperial victory was attributed to the Christian god. Emperors built basilicas, summoned clergy, and presented themselves as guardians of sacred unity. The Pax Deorum was not simply renamed, but the old political instinct survived. The empire's well-being depended upon right relations with heaven. When disaster came, people still asked which sin, error, heresy, or neglected duty had opened the way. In 410 CE, the Gothic army of Alaric entered and sacked Rome. For 8 centuries, no foreign enemy had captured the city. Shock traveled across the Mediterranean. Pagans argued that abandoning the old gods had weakened Rome. Christians had to explain how a city filled with churches and relics could suffer. Augustine of Hippo answered through a work that became the City of God. He rejected the claim that old religion had guaranteed Roman safety and argued that earthly states rise and fall. The Christians' final city was not Rome, but the eternal community ordered toward God. Scipio had once wept over Carthage and imagined Rome's future fall. Now Christian philosophy loosened sacred destiny from the city itself. Rome could be invaded without proving Christianity false. The shift was profound. Traditional Roman religion had tied divine peace to the visible continuity of the state, while Christianity could value political order without treating any earthly empire as ultimate. The gods had once helped make Rome eternal. Christian Rome learned to survive the admission that Rome was not. The transformation continued after the Western imperial court ceased to rule Rome. In 476 CE, the deposition of the last Western emperor did not end the city, its churches, its aristocratic families, or every inherited custom. The Eastern Roman Empire continued. Gothic kings governed Italy through Roman institutions. Senators still remembered old lineages. Bishops became increasingly important civic leaders. Ancient temples stood in different conditions. The Pantheon survived with exceptional completeness. The building visible today was constructed under Hadrian in the 2nd century, though its inscription preserved the name of Agrippa's earlier monument. Its immense concrete dome gathered light through a central opening. The original divine program remains debated. The name suggests a relationship with all gods, but the precise rituals and dedications cannot be fully reconstructed. In 609 CE, the Emperor Phocas gave the building to Pope Boniface IV, and it was consecrated as a church of Mary and the martyrs. Its continued use as a church helped protect it. The statues and ritual purpose changed. The architecture remained in use rather than becoming an abandoned quarry. The Pantheon's survival does not mean Christianity simply preserved pagan Rome. Many buildings vanished. It demonstrates that religious transformation could carry material form across a boundary that theology declared absolute. Other continuities are easier to feel than to prove. January still carries Janus's name, though Romans themselves debated the word's origin and the month's early history. March carries Mars. May and June preserve ancient names whose derivations were already uncertain in antiquity, with June commonly associated with Juno. The modern sequence of months came through Roman calendars reshaped by Caesar, Augustus, late imperial administration, medieval churches, and later reform. Days of the week also carry divine histories in many languages. Latin speakers named days through the sun, moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn. Romance languages preserve several of these planetary gods. Germanic languages translated some associations through their own deities, so English Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday are not simply Latin names, but evidence of cultural interpretation. The gods remain in speech without requiring worship. The title Pontifex Maximus offers another tempting but complicated continuity. Roman emperors held it for centuries. Christian emperors eventually abandoned or altered its traditional pagan meaning. Bishops of Rome were called pontiffs, a broader Latin term for priests, and papal use of Pontifex Maximus became prominent much later rather than passing through one uninterrupted official transfer from Augustus. The resemblance is real. A direct, unbroken succession is too simple. Roman religious forms influenced Christianity partly because Christians lived inside Roman society. They spoke Latin and Greek, used Roman law, occupied Roman buildings, traveled Roman roads, and organized communities within Roman cities. When they rejected sacrifice, they did not step outside the world that sacrifice had structured. Basilicas illustrate this selective inheritance. The architectural form had served civic, judicial, and commercial functions rather than functioning primarily as a pagan temple. Christians adapted its long interior, aisles, apse, and gathering capacity for worship. They did not usually model churches on the small inner chamber of a classical temple because Christian assembly required space for a congregation. The new religion chose Roman forms suited to its different ritual needs. Funerary practice also changed through layers. Christians gathered near martyrs' graves, buried their dead with inscriptions of hope, and celebrated anniversaries. Roman family memory and Christian communion of saints did not mean the same thing, but both made burial places socially active. The catacombs beneath Rome were not secret underground cities where all early Christians hid from constant persecution. They were burial networks used in a world where tombs stood outside urban sacred limits. Their paintings and inscriptions show biblical scenes, meals, shepherds, fish, anchors, prayers, occupations, and family ties. Ordinary religious change survives most honestly in such fragments. An elite writer may declare that paganism has ended. A law may prohibit household offerings. Archaeology may still find lamps burning at an old shrine. A bishop may condemn a seasonal custom precisely because people continue it. A family may understand the same meal differently across generations. There was no final evening when every Roman god departed. Instead, there were thousands of smaller endings. A priesthood failed to replace an aging member. A temple roof was not repaired. A statue lost its procession. A child learned a Christian prayer instead of a household formula. A landowner stopped funding sacrifice. A village feast kept its date but changed its explanation. A stone was built into a church wall with its inscription turned inward. The old gods also survived as literature and art. School children read Virgil and Ovid. Christian writers argued against Jupiter, Venus, and Mars while preserving stories about them. Manuscripts copied by Christian scribes carried pagan poetry into the Middle Ages. A god could cease receiving sacrifice and continue living in grammar lessons. This literary survival shaped later Europe. Renaissance artists filled palaces and churches with classical forms. Planets, virtues, months, and myths returned in painting and sculpture. Venus could represent beauty without commanding a temple. Jupiter could appear in poetry without requiring an ox. The modern category mythology is partly the result of this transformation. For ancient Romans, stories about gods belonged to religion but did not define all of it. For later readers, the stories survived more easily than the ritual system. A student could learn that Mercury carried messages while never hearing how an actual merchant fulfilled a vow. Mars remained a character while the Salii's archaic song fell silent. What was most visible to posterity was not always what had been most important in daily life. The empire's religion had rested upon acts repeated until they appeared permanent. Its disappearance was also made of acts repeated. Churches funded, sacrifices omitted, laws enforced, children taught, buildings converted, festivals reinterpreted. Ritual had built the Roman sacred world through repeated acts. Altered and omitted acts gradually unbuilt and transformed it. Much of what Romans thought they were preserving has been lost. Priestly archives burned. The original Sibylline Books disappeared when the Capitoline Temple burned in 83 BCE, and a reconstructed collection was later destroyed in late antiquity. The songs of the Salii survive only in fragments and comments from people who already found them difficult. Initiation secrets died with communities that refused to write them down. The surviving evidence is uneven. Elite authors describe public crises more readily than quiet devotion. Christian writers preserve pagan arguments in order to defeat them. Legal codes tell us what emperors wanted to stop, not how completely they stopped it. Inscriptions preserve names and vows while leaving emotion unstated. Archaeology finds shrines without hearing the prayers spoken before them. Roman religion must be reconstructed from the spaces between these records. A small altar from a frontier fort may reveal a god unknown to literature. A kitchen shrine at Pompeii shows where sacred attention entered work. Animal bones indicate meals and sacrifice. Coins show the images government wanted people to carry. Cursed tablets preserve anger no senator thought worth recording. The ordinary worshiper appears briefly, a woman thanking a goddess for childbirth, a freedman honoring the emperor and local Lares, a soldier fulfilling a vow after safe return, a parent mourning a child, a merchant asking protection for a voyage. These acts prevent Roman religion from becoming only a machine of state. The state stood at its heart, but millions of private fears kept the gods alive. What did a Roman believe while placing incense on a flame? There is no single answer. One person imagined a god listening as a powerful individual. Another understood the rite as ancestral duty. Another feared punishment for neglect. Another hoped without certainty. A philosopher saw a symbol of cosmic reason. A politician saw public legitimacy. Most could hold several of these meanings together without needing to choose. The familiar division between sincere faith and empty ceremony does not fit. A repeated act can be sincere because it is inherited. A political ritual can still be sacred. A person can doubt a myth and honor a god. A community can manipulate signs while fearing what the signs might mean. Roman religion endured because it did not require everyone to experience the divine in the same way. Its flexibility was also a weakness when exclusivity entered the center of imperial power. The old system could add Christ as another protective god. Christianity could not accept that place without ceasing to be itself. Once emperors embraced Christian monotheism, the habits of state religion turned against sacrifice. Law, money, buildings, public calendars, and official appointments gradually supported one sacred order rather than many. The machinery remained Roman even as its theological direction reversed. The old gods did not simply die. Jupiter no longer received the consuls on New Year's Day. Vesta's fire went cold. The Vestals left no successors. Augurs no longer suspended elections. Sacrificial smoke no longer rose as the normal language of government. But the human questions remained. How does a community respond to disaster? Who decides whether an omen, doctrine, or ritual is valid? How can private conviction coexist with public obligation? What does political power owe the divine? Can a state tolerate a practice that denies the sacred foundation of the state itself? Rome answered these questions differently across 1,000 years. The answers changed because Rome changed. Return now to the summer of 217 BCE. The messenger has entered the city. Lake Trasimene lies far to the north, but its dead are suddenly present in every street. Families wait for names. Senators gather. Hannibal is still moving. Rome could have treated the defeat as proof that its gods were powerless. Instead, the city assumed the relationship had been mishandled. The response was not gentle. It included fear blame, sacrifice, and political calculation. It also revealed a civilization's deepest confidence. Disorder could be repaired through correct action. The old vow to Mars would be performed again. Jupiter would receive games. Venus Erycina would receive a temple. Mens, the power of sound judgment, would receive another. Gods would be invited to a feast. Citizens would pray. Animals of a future spring would be dedicated. Fabius would take command, refuse Hannibal the battle he wanted, and give Rome time. The rituals did not defeat Hannibal by magic. They did something no less important for the Romans who performed them. They gave catastrophe a form. They transformed terror into duties that could be distributed, witnessed, and completed. They told a frightened population that the world still contained order, even if order had to be rebuilt. That function continued through every age of Roman religion. A household offering made danger smaller by placing it inside relationship. A funeral meal kept death from becoming complete separation. An augury turned political action into a question asked before heaven. An imported goddess allowed crisis to become expansion rather than collapse. An imperial cult gave distant communities a shared language of loyalty. A martyr's refusal declared that conscience could stand beyond the emperor's command. A council's creed tried to make one truth carry an empire once held by many gods. The answers contradicted one another. They belonged to different Romes. The city of Numa's sacred calendar was not the city of Caesar's divine ancestry. The empire of Isis and Mithras was not the empire of Theodosius. Christian Rome was not merely pagan Rome wearing another name. Yet each inherited institutions, streets, memories, and habits from the one before. On the Capitoline Hill, the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus has vanished. Medieval and modern buildings cover its ground. Fragments of foundations and decoration remain. Visitors climb the hill without following new consuls toward white bulls and sacrificial fire. Below, the forum lies open to sky. The circular temple of Vesta stands partly reconstructed. Its hearth is empty. Nearby, the house where Vestals lived is ruin and garden. Statues without original heads line the courtyard. Names once spoken with fear or honor have become labels in museums. At the Pantheon, however, people still enter a Roman sacred building. Light falls through the oculus and moves across the dome as the earth turns. Rain sometimes enters. Voices rise beneath concrete poured in the age of emperors. The building is a Christian church, an ancient monument, a burial place, an architectural wonder, and a room that has gathered different meanings without losing its shape. This may be the most Roman survival of all. This was not sameness, but adaptation. The Romans believed that survival depended upon maintaining relationships across visible and invisible worlds. Their rites could be exact, conservative, and severe. Their pantheon could also welcome a goddess from Anatolia, an Egyptian queen of heaven, a Syrian Jupiter, a Celtic Mercury, and eventually arguments about the God of Israel. The system expanded until one form of belonging rejected the terms of expansion. Then the empire changed its sacred center. The gods did not leave behind a single doctrine. They left roads of memory, a month named for Mars, a planet named for Jupiter, a household shrine painted beneath ash, an oath carved on stone, an altar carried from a frontier, a temple made into a church. They also left a warning. Ritual can unite a community by giving everyone a place within shared action. It can also expose whoever cannot participate. Families waited. The city was afraid, but it was not without a language for fear. That language would build temples, justify wars, welcome foreign gods, crown emperors, condemn martyrs, and finally be translated into another faith. The smoke above Jupiter's altar is gone. The questions once carried through it remain. Sleep well. Good night.